What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video and another week of Loki. I'm here joined by my buddy, the Big Rob Theory, who's going to be appearing in videos a lot more often moving forward in the next couple months. But for now, we're here to talk about the second episode of Loki, titled The Variant. Yeah, we both walked into this and we were pretty excited. We both loved the first episode. He has a review over on his channel for it. Before we get too far into this, how's it going, my friend?
Good, man. How are you?
Good. It's I'm a little tired. It's 4 a.m. That is what we do for these Disney Plus reviews.
It's well worth it, though. Absolutely,
without a doubt. Definitely don't want any spoilers, especially when it comes to the Marvel stuff, because you go online the next morning and it's everywhere. Yeah. So the second episode of Loki picks up after what we've seen in the last episode, where we find out there is a separate version of Loki going around that is causing some mischief, and the TVA now needs him to kind of help them with that. And yeah, we were talking at the beginning of the episode, and I pretty much said, I'm pretty sure this is going to be the female Loki. We were saying it's either that or just another bad Loki.
Like a Loki that kind of, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you.
No, of course.
Like a Loki, what I was saying was I thought that it was a Loki that maybe in his timeline that he achieved his purpose, or the purpose that he believed he was born and bred for, which is to rule. That's what I thought, but it could have been anything. But before these shows came out, I remember that there were talks about Lady Loki, and I remember, Lady Loki from the comics and everything, and I did want to see that. So those were like some different things that we thought about going into this, just because obviously we're excited for this show, because this is awesome that we're finally here with Loki.
It's crazy to me, dude, like that we went all of 2020, didn't have any MCU stuff really, and moving into this year, we've already had WandaVision, Falcon the Winter Soldier, and now this, and Black Widow's about to come out, and we also have Shang-Chi later in the year, and the Eternals, and it's just like, it's just getting better and better, and not to mention the other non-MCU Marvel movies as well, like the new Venom movie. It's going to be a really good year for Marvel-related content, without a doubt. So overall, my general thoughts on this episode, really cool. I like the setup of everything that's happening. Just to kind of jump to it, we are going to be touching on spoilers, as we usually do. So let's go ahead and get to the biggest one. It was indeed female Loki.
Yes.
So yeah, really enjoyed the actress that they had there for that short period of time. She seemed like she was really into it, really selling the role, very Loki-esque. Most of the time is her hooded in the episode or controlling other people, so we kind of see her played out through the performances of other people. But yeah, what did you think of this episode overall?
Sorry. Sorry. I actually really love this episode, and honestly, I think we both thought about it, but we didn't say it, because once the Lady Loki got into the very first person, I was like, well, not the first person, Jesus
Christ. It's 4 a.m, people. It's 4 a.m.
Once Lady Loki started really talking through the time variance lady, that's when I kind of thought, is this Lady Loki? Like, could this really be Lady Loki? Just the mannerisms that she was doing with these people. It just didn't seem like the male version of Loki, Like, even the male version of Loki was kind of like, they had similar things, but I could just tell it was very different. And I like that. The actress that they chose did a really good job. It was a little bit of time, but that's more than enough when it comes to someone like Loki. There's not many people that can play Loki. There's not many people that can do it, because you have to do it right. And from what I could see so far, I think she, I'm excited to see her more. This is gonna be fun.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be really cool. We have 2 various Lokis now, and I definitely knew it was gonna be the female Loki leading up to it, specifically earlier in the episode when they show these different variances of Loki. Some of them were kind of goofy. Some of them literally there was one where he looked like the Hulk, but it was just like Tom Hiddleston's head on it.
That's funny.
It was some goofy versions of him, and I was like, okay, well, they're definitely leaning into the fact that it's going to be a female one. But yeah, most of this episode is Loki working with the TVA, Owen Wilson and Tom Hiddleston's chemistry. They're back and forth. It's so funny. I really enjoy Owen Wilson in this show thus far. But yeah, overall, I would say this is a pretty straightforward, fun episode. We were both saying this is kind of like a blend of Marvel and Doctor Who, and DC has a show called Legends of Tomorrow that's on the CW. And it's part of the whole Arrowverse set of shows, and it feels very much like that. You know what I mean? Like this group, this organization that has to do with time, and now we have characters that we know and love from the movies. In this case, it's just Loki so far, but like seeing him have to go and kind of deal with these different time anomalies and variances yeah, I'm really thoroughly enjoying it.
Yeah.
The performances are solid. Anything that maybe stood out in this episode to you outside of Lady Loki?
Oh yeah, for 100%. I mean, a lot. There's a lot. One of the main ones was, yes, the chemistry, but it's not just about the chemistry. It's just the way how these two are together as characters in the show. I'm really excited because I know I was reading up about Mobius because I knew who Mobius was, but I didn't know a lot about him or the Time Variance Authority. I knew they existed. I knew who they were. I know how they came to be. I just didn't know a lot about them. So when I read about them, Mobius defends a lot of heroes in the Marvel multiverse or universe. So I'm curious to see how he keeps defending Loki, if he does, which I feel like he will. Their chemistry is too strong. Not even just like the actors. I mean, in the show, their chemistry is too strong. So I'm looking forward to seeing that, and especially there's something that happens at the end of the episode that Mobius is probably like, all right, well, thanks. This is great.
Exactly.
So I'm curious to see how this unfolds because this is only episode 2, and I don't know about you, man, but that felt pretty like
no. Well, they're definitely
level. So
they're definitely ramping it up right out of the gate. They're not really spending too much time. Like they spend the first episode very plot heavy, getting you all the information.
Jovial, and
it's definitely setting you up on the TVA, and now you kind of feel like you understand what's going on. They're like, all right, let's get to it. With something like WandaVision, there was that few episodes of what is happening. Like they really wrapped that story around the mystery, whereas this one's like, all right, here's all this information right out of the gate in the first episode, and now you'll have those things that we're learning as time goes on, but we're going to get straight to it. And so he mentioned something that happens at the end of the episode that is more than likely going to ruin the relationship that's being built between Loki and Mobius, which is essentially that Loki decides to go through a time door that is created by Lady Loki. She walks through it after she sets off a bunch of time resetting bombs, which, if you've been watching, are essentially like little nukes that are left off in different places in the timeline that essentially kind of cleanse it of any sort of variances.
So I'm curious for that. I'm curious as to where every single one of those went, because we wouldn't have been shown... we wouldn't have been shown every single one of those explosions and them like going through, unless obviously it's very significant. And another thing that I noticed even from episode 1 that I kind of left out of my review, which I hated afterwards, was the whole Infinity Stone thing. That thing has really been bothering me. The fact that the Infinity Stones, which are some of the most powerful cosmic things in the universe, here are literally used as paperweights. And I get it. Magic is ineffective, but the Infinity Stones to me are more than just magic. You know what I mean? So I feel like that's very significant in itself, and they kind of just threw that in there to be like, all right, let's see if the real Marvel fans know what's up. Let's see if people are paying attention. I feel like something revolving that, not the Infinity Stones, but the idea behind the Infinity Stones being kind of a joke.
Well, that's something I'm looking forward to seeing how they deal with moving forward, because I said it in my review for the first episode. The time travel element of the MCU is a bit convoluted for me. When you really think about it, they explain it decent enough in Endgame for you to just kind of be like, all right, cool, let's keep the story going. You have the Ancient One telling the Hulk about the various timelines, and so there's just one straight timeline, and if something happens in one place, it branches off and creates a whole new timeline, but that original timeline still exists. So then it makes me think, okay, then in the timeline where Thanos, snapped and everybody disappeared in Infinity War, when they go back to get all those different stones, they're creating new timelines every time, right? And then they somehow still defeat the same Thanos from the same timeline, even though that the Thanos that they're fighting in Endgame is a Thanos from a different timeline. Nebula had the memories from the other timeline Nebula, which brought Thanos to fight these versions of the Avengers. So did they actually fight the real Thanos? Is there still another timeline where Thanos still won? I
thought about that.
It's a bit much, and I think if they would have just made it, hey, you're time traveling back and forth, and whatever you did in the past or in the future changes things. So maybe the consequence would be that things that we know about the universe would be different. In which case you could say that's how you can kind of introduce maybe characters that we haven't had in the MCU already, and say like, oh, they were here this whole time. Maybe they already know the Avengers. Let's say something like the X-Men. Let's say like the X-Men now existed in a variance that was created in the past, to where like now when they come back to the future, like the Avengers know who the X-Men are, or the X-Men know who the Avengers are, and the Avengers are like, who are you?
Yeah,
exactly.
I thought about that.
I feel like something like that would make the most sense, rather than like, here's one straight timeline, and which is called the sacred timeline, and then a bunch of different timelines that spawn from it. But some of them are okay to exist, whereas some of them are variants.
That's what it's weird for me too.
Yeah, it's strange. And they even said in the last episode, which was like, essentially kind of just an easy way to write it off when it came to the Avengers in the events of an Endgame, was simply like, because even I think Loki said, like, what about, the Avengers having come back in time to get the Tesseract and all this kind of stuff? They were just like, oh yeah, but the Avengers were supposed to do that. Would the TVA have stepped in if the Avengers had not decided to?
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's a bit convoluted, and so now that we're in this whole new show, completely about a version of Loki that in the original timeline still dies, but in this version he branched off into a whole new timeline. So in that original timeline, what's
the original timeline's deal? Like what's up?
It's gonna start getting convoluted when you really think about it. When you have all these branching off timelines, and the idea that those are a bad thing, and that's why the TVA exists, but then the Avengers literally have an entire film where what they're doing the entire time. But in this case, it's like, oh, that's what they were supposed to do.
Okay, so I'm glad that we're on this timeline thing, because I love time travel.
Yeah.
And this has really been bugging me. Not in a terrible way, but it's like, there's more to this, because why is it that there's certain things that are okay? Case in point, Thanos doing the whole snapping thing. You would think, oh, we should probably not let half the universe or multiverse die.
Yeah.
We probably shouldn't let that happen. But apparently that's supposed to happen. Same thing with Avengers going back. Same thing with Loki killing people in New York. Like, there's just a lot of things that happen in the Marvel Cinematic Universe that it's like, okay, so the TVA is supposed to keep everything intact. But at the same time, certain things that go out of whack, yeah, that's supposed to happen. What do you mean? What does it all mean? Where does it all end up?
It seems a little convenient.
Yeah, it seems extremely convenient.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's a good,
Yeah,
to say it like that, but it's just that's one thing for me. It's like, okay, so where is all this going with the whole time stream thing?
Yeah.
Because in DC, I know that like, you do something in one universe, it's all over. Like literally, like the next.
Well, I guess that's
universe
my point, right? It's
know?
like the DC shows, for instance, like the CW and stuff. Like those shows get a little convoluted as well with the whole time travel and multiple universe thing. But in that show, when the Flash did do his whole Flashpoint thing and he altered timelines, if you're watching all the shows, there are changes across all the shows. Like if you were watching Arrow and you never watched the Flash, and all of a sudden, John Diggle's son or daughter becomes a son, you'd be like, huh? What's going on? There's no explanation of it until like you watch the series in its entirety. But what I enjoy about that is like, hey, this character went to the past, altered something, which ended up altering small little details in everybody else's life, which makes the most sense to me, rather than having the straight timeline where timelines are branched off and you really don't know which timeline you're following anymore, or how that last one is really affected. You know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, with this Loki having with doing this, you know what I mean? He saw what happened to his original life. He would have died. You know what I mean? Like by the hands of Thanos. He saw that in the first episode, but did that actually still happen?
Is that part of the thing?
It's just like, so are the events of Infinity War still valid? Are the events of Ragnarok still valid? It's confusing because he left that timeline, so there's no Loki in that timeline, but the idea is that timeline still exists. But this is just a Loki who has a separate timeline because it's created a new it's just like, I
personally think that somehow, some way, that the Infinity War and like Endgame and all that still happens somehow, some way, and we're gonna see how and why. I don't know how and why. I really don't know, because again, that's what I've been thinking of since the first episode. I'm like, oh, so that Loki's just gone out of that timeline. So I mean, what happens? 'Cause
exactly.
He definitely helped with Ragnarok. He did, as in, like he helped Thor defeat Surtur, defeat Hela. But it's like, so does none of that matter? Yeah. Does it all matter for a bigger purpose?
My best guess would be that at the end of this series, they're gonna put him back in 2012
That's
the
what I'm
events of the
thinking, yeah.
Avengers.
But
That's the only thing that makes sense to me in terms of having this separate timeline, but still making the other films feel valid. So yeah, I think we both seem a little confused on that element, but obviously this has nothing to do specifically with this episode, but just about the show in general.
yeah.
And it's something I hope they kind of handle moving forward in
I feel
terms
like
of
they will.
the different time. But as far as this episode goes, great effects, great performances. I'm enjoying the score. I'm enjoying, the very subtle humor throughout the show. I'm enjoying that chemistry between Tom Hiddleston and Owen Wilson. And overall, it's a fun, light, funny show with some pretty cool big stakes. And I like, again, that these shows, specifically WandaVision and now this one, are doing something different. Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I think, was that taste of maybe like more traditional Marvel. But this one and WandaVision are definitely going for something very different. So yeah, my wrapped up thoughts would be really enjoyed the episode, and hopefully you guys did too. What would you say as your final thoughts?
My final thoughts would be, yeah, that was an amazing episode, and I'm so excited to see where it goes. Again, the fact that we're in episode 2, and in my opinion, maybe he agrees too. That's a pretty serious event that just happened in the show. So I'm very curious to see if this is episode 2 and we're getting that serious. What's going to happen during episode 6 or 7? And I also have to give props to that black actress. I cannot remember her name for the life of me. But that black actress who is like the main time variance authority lady.
Yeah, I'll put the name right here. I don't know what her name is either.
She is phenomenal, and I say that because she's in a lot of other things, that I've seen, and I've liked her and followed her for a while because I just followed her as in seen her in various stuff and like, oh, okay, I know who this is and I really like her and I see her name all the time. I cannot remember it. But I like that she's in this and she's adding that, excuse my language, but bad bitch vibe, but like boss, the boss lady vibe, She's like, no nonsense. Like, yeah, okay, I know who you are, Loki, and I ain't about it. Don't bring shit here. And that, but it's also, trying to keep everything with a timeline thing. So I love this show, and I love time travel, and I love magic. I love Asgardians and the Asgardian lore. So I think that's another reason why I'm so attached to this show. But it's an awesome episode. Definitely pay attention. I mean, I pay attention during every episode, but definitely pay attention to that scene with Loki and Lady Loki, with different people. Sorry. It's just, I don't know. It's a great scene. It's a great scene.
Yeah, I actually was thinking to myself, it's cool to see different actors who maybe, not necessarily the actress you're talking about from the TVA, but her and those other various actors. It's cool to see just random actors that you don't know getting to have a chance to kind of play Loki, you know what I mean, in their own way, but still have their own voice. Like there's the guy that's kind of country that like he's dealing with there. So I think that's cool to be able to see Loki kind of embodied.
Randy.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, overall a solid episode. Looking forward to seeing where this show goes. Obviously, this is a really solid show with a lot of things to talk about. So if you guys definitely have thoughts on the show and this episode, please leave those comments down below. The link to the Big Rob Theory will be down below in the description box. Please go give them some love. We're gonna have plenty more videos together very soon, as I told you, and we'll probably make a video about that as we get closer to what's going on. But a big thanks to you guys for watching The Big Rob Theory on YouTube. Link down below in the description box. Hit that like button, comment for more videos, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.
Until next time.